A career, I'm an artist. I have a lot of things to lose.
We out here on vacation in the Bahamas. Another beautiful day. Check it out. Check it out. Boom. I want to talk to y'all for a minute.
His nose was bleeding. He in the corner screaming, balled up, right? Like I could feel his pain, like he had been forced to do something.
Surrounded by a whole lot of strength. He's surrounded by a whole lot of love. And all he has to do is add discipline.
That's how I was able to see the tapes. This is why she think I saw them. And I saw some things that were unreal. And I saw celebrities on the tape. I opened the door to Dwayne's dressing room. And that's when I see Dwayne. There was a couch and Will was bent over on the couch and Dwayne was standing up.
Unfortunately, some things happened. And I can't get into the details of exactly what that was. Because it's already illegal.
My man Charlie Mack. So Charlie was with me every step of the way. First out the limo. So Charlie has been with me, 30 years coming up in the business. So, he's surrounded by a whole lot of strength. He's surrounded by a whole lot of love. And all he has to do is add discipline and he gonna be all right.
It's like Uncle Will, Who is best to give you advice? And it's Will Smith, and I'm getting so much good advice. I got my first acting role, Empire, and it's changing my life. And it's like I'm listening from the greatest, and it's like making me well prepared to work with Taraji.
We're seeing hours of new video from his July arrest that ended with his wife flagging down police and telling them the actor had a for hours inside their Goodyear home. The bizarre jailhouse interview lasting for 2 hours as they try to piece together a chaotic chain of events.
Open the door to Dwayne's dressing room, and that's when I see Dwayne and having with Will.
Let me process that for a second.
There was a couch, and Will was bent over on the couch, and Dwayne was standing up. Murder, it was murder.
All right, Brother Bilal, listen, I do want to say,
okay,
for the viewers, because we're going to rewind back. Before we put out the interview, all we put out was a clip that went ultra viral. Okay? Yeah. Everybody in the world got this clip. It was trending for days on Twitter. Okay? Before the interview comes out, what shocked me is Jada is doing her book promotional for Worthy.
Yes.
She goes to the Breakfast Club and she sits down and they ask her about you, but they can't not ask. Like, it's so huge.
Right.
And to my surprise, she answers.
It's ridiculous, right? And it's nonsense. And this is a person that tried a money shakedown that didn't work. We're gonna take legal action.
The reason Will responded, the reason why Jada responded, because they know it's true. Will's never responded. And they responded in less than 9 hours.
They did. That was a fast response.
That was because he know what I saw in that dressing room. He know other things that I saw. She did all this to try to scare me, but I fear no one but Allah. Jada, listen, in 2 weeks, if you don't sue me in 2 weeks, if Tasha K will have me, I'm back here and I'm dropping evidence. Period. You said I extorted you. You said there's a money shakedown. You said a lot of things about me. And you know that the things that you said were untrue. Let's get into a little bit more of it. Jada runs Will. Period. Me and her at war. I'm gonna put Will to the side. Will is to the side. Me and Jada, I will say this because I know you're watching. I know Karen Tense is watching.
Who's Karen Tense?
That is her PR person for years.
Okay.
Right? I know they're watching. Jada, you're a bald head liar and you're a drug addict. Right?
Oh, God.
You told the world that you were going to sue me. As of yet, and you said you're going to do it swift. It's been over 2 weeks. So, Jada, I'm giving you 2 more weeks to sue me. If you don't sue me, this is what's going to happen. All the sex parties, right? And the men that you hit with dildo, I'm naming names, right? All the salacious stuff that you have done and hurt other people, I'm naming names. You assassinate my character. You say I extort you. Well, extortion is criminal. Like, I would be in jail right now. That he had with Bryshere Gray, but it was consensual, right? So I'm like, okay, so now it's starting to make sense because I would have never believed that the way this guy's acting, something had to happen. So now, Will told me, and this is going to be in paperwork and everything, right? So when Will told me that he did have sexual intercourse with Bryshere, he said Bryshere did ask him to stop. Will said he finished, completed the act, then stopped. Right then and there, when a person say stop, that means stop. Period. So I do believe that Will Smith, Bryshere Gray. Charlie Mack and Will gets a lawyer for Bryshere, and they try to get me under NDA. I tell Will, I'm not signing, I don't even have an NDA with you. How am I getting an NDA with him? You understand what I'm saying? So I hire a lawyer, right? Mm-hmm. When I hire the lawyer, he comes back and say, listen, this is the best I can do. He said, I'm going to have y'all do a mutual NDA, meaning that Bryshere can't tell people that you know that Will and Diddy now. And I want to say the R word, but I know we're on YouTube. Then you can't say nothing about him. So I said, okay, well, as long as he stopped telling people that I know what Will and Diddy did to him. You understand what I'm saying? Period. That was the problem. So there's legal paperwork, and it's all going to be, and you got to follow the hold them down, because he was like, Charlie Mack is not going to be able to be there because him and Charlie had something else going on. I arrived in Chicago for Empire. It's a damn mess. It's no other way to put it. This dude is going crazy, right? He's out there allegedly with male prostitutes. He's pissing in the trailer. He's acting psychotic, right?
The same thing he's doing now.
Beyond that. But this is why a show is going on. I pulled him to the side. I said, listen, I'm here to help you, and so forth and so on. So he was like, all right, I feel that. He said, everybody on the set know you. Everybody seem like they love you. Okay. I want to love you because everybody else love you. I said, if that's what you want to do, then do it. But he kept acting up. And then one day I said, what the F is wrong with you? And he was like, you know. He said, you know Will me. You know Diddy made me suck his face. You know what's going on. You know Charlie made me suck. And I said, I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea. So he crying, no blood is coming from his nose. Yes, you do. And I'm like, yo, listen.
Trying to slay him out so he'll feel too embarrassed to file his lawsuit against Diddy for what Will and Diddy did to him. With Jaden and Justin present, that tape exists. Okay. I really hope none of that baby oil was used on those kids. That would just be in bad taste. Baby oil on babies.
You can't say that the flavor camp was sponsored by Johnson & Johnson. You just come on.
Starting to sound that way, ain't it?
No.
All that talent, and she let Charlie tune that boy up wrong, knowing that he was bipolar and had ADHD. What kind of mother would do that to her son? Turn him into a prostitute so you could pretend to be something more than what you are, which is nothing more than a filly. You're a big ol' they're making your son out to be, that's for sure. Cause he didn't have no choice. You was down by all. I'm sorry, the Bryshere conversation for me is not easy. Because I came to Belial and I asked Belial to help me save the kids, and all he was worried about was his book.
Oh yeah, no, definitely.
Don't nobody care about these kids. Don't nobody care about these kids.
What if one of Hollywood's most trusted mentors wasn't shaping careers at all, but quietly destroying them? Behind the glossy red carpets, motivational speeches, and carefully curated family image, disturbing allegations have resurfaced that tie together mentorship, power, silence, and a once promising young star whose life unraveled almost overnight. For years, people dismissed these claims as conspiracy or clout chasing. But now, with lawsuits stacking up, former insiders speaking out, and old footage taking on new meaning, the questions are getting harder to ignore. Was this really guidance, or something far darker hiding in plain sight? For a long time, this story was treated like one of those Hollywood rumors people roll their eyes at and keep scrolling past. Too messy, too unbelievable, too inconvenient to take seriously. The names involved were simply too big, too respected, too carefully protected for the allegations to stick. When whispers first surfaced, they were brushed off as bitterness, mental health struggles, or opportunistic clout chasing from people whose careers didn't pan out. The narrative felt settled. One side polished and powerful, the other unstable and unreliable. Case closed, or so it seemed. But here's where things get uncomfortable. Years later, the pieces people once ignored are starting to line up in ways that are harder to dismiss. Old interviews sound different now. Past breakdowns no longer look random. And the timing of certain career rises and sudden downfalls feels less coincidental and more patterned. What was once written off as crazy talk is now being echoed by multiple voices, former insiders, associates, and people who were close enough to see what the public never could. That's when a rumor stops being just a rumor and starts feeling like a question that was buried on purpose. At the center of this is a powerful Hollywood image built on mentorship, wisdom, and moral authority. An image that made it almost impossible for anyone to believe something darker could exist behind it. When someone is positioned as a role model, a family man, a guiding force for young talent, society is quick to defend that version of them. We want to believe success equals integrity. We want to believe fame comes with accountability. And when accusations threaten that belief, it's easier to attack the messenger than to examine the message. What's forcing people to look again isn't just one claim or one interview. It's the accumulation. Lawsuits quietly stacking up. Former friends suddenly distancing themselves. Allegations that once sounded outrageous, now sounding eerily similar across different stories. And perhaps most disturbing of all, the realization that the people who seemed to lose everything after these relationships weren't losing it randomly. Their lives unraveled in ways that suggest trauma, not failure. Damage, not self-destruction. This is why the story is being revisited now. Not because gossip cycles need fresh drama, but because silence no longer feels safe. In an industry built on power, access, and favors, the truth often doesn't come out all at once. It leaks, slowly, through broken careers, NDAs, nervous laughter and old clips, and people who crack years later under the weight of what they were told to forget. And once you start connecting those dots, it becomes impossible not to wonder whether the public was never told the full story or whether it simply wasn't ready to hear it. Before the chaos, before the mugshots and headlines, Bryshere Gray was the kind of success story Hollywood loves to celebrate. Young, charismatic, and undeniably talented, he was being positioned as the next breakout star, someone who had survived a tough upbringing and was finally getting a shot. In interviews from that time, Bryshere came across as humble and hopeful, repeatedly expressing gratitude for the people guiding him. He spoke openly about how mentorship was changing his life, how he felt protected, supported, and finally seen by industry giants who believed in his potential. He called it a blessing. He called it family. And most importantly, he trusted it. Publicly, Bryshere seemed energized and optimistic. He talked about discipline, growth, and learning from legends. He smiled through red carpets and credited his mentors for opening doors he never thought he'd walk through. To fans watching from the outside, this looked like a classic Hollywood glow-up. A young artist being molded, guided, and elevated by powerful figures who claimed to want nothing more than to see him win. There was no visible fear, no public doubt, just loyalty and admiration. Looking back now, that unwavering trust is what makes this part of the story hit so hard. At the time, the mentorship was framed as exclusive access, private guidance, career advice, and proximity to people who could make or break futures with a phone call. Insiders later claimed it wasn't just about auditions or scripts, but about control, about dependency, about placing a young, impressionable artist into an environment where saying no didn't feel like an option. The lines between professional guidance and personal access allegedly became blurred with power dynamics that favored the people at the top and left Bryshere with very little agency. What was sold as protection allegedly came with expectations. Expectations that were never written down, but clearly understood. According to those who later spoke out, mentorship wasn't something you opted into and out of freely. It was something you complied with if you wanted to stay in the room. And when someone holds your career in their hands, silence can feel safer than resistance. From the outside, Bryshere was thriving. Behind the scenes, insiders now claim the cost of that access was far higher than anyone realized at the time. Then, almost without warning, everything stopped. The roles dried up. The calls slowed down. The momentum vanished. Where Bryshere had once been positioned as a rising star, he suddenly became a cautionary tale. His name started appearing in headlines for all the wrong reasons. Arrests, erratic behavior, public breakdowns that fans struggled to reconcile with the bright-eyed artist they remembered. The fall was fast and jarring, creating emotional whiplash that left people asking how someone could lose everything so quickly. What stood out wasn't just the downfall itself, but how alone it seemed. The mentors who once praised him publicly were suddenly nowhere to be found. The support system he thought he had appeared to vanish overnight. To the public, it looked like self-destruction. But to those now revisiting the timeline, it looked more like someone unraveling after something deeply destabilizing. The question shifted from what did he do to what happened to him. The story took a dramatic turn when a former assistant and close insider stepped forward, someone who had been present, trusted, and deeply embedded in that inner circle. This wasn't a distant observer or an internet commentator. This was someone who had proximity, access, and first-hand knowledge of how things work behind closed doors. That's why his claims landed differently. He wasn't speculating. He was recounting what he said he saw, heard, and was directly involved in managing. According to him, Bryshere's behavior after the mentorship didn't come out of nowhere. He alleged that Bryshere confided in him, breaking down emotionally and describing experiences that suggested coercion and blurred consent. This insider framed Bryshere not as unstable, but as traumatized. And once those words were out, they cracked the image people had clung to for years. For the first time, the narrative wasn't just coming from the person whose life fell apart. It was coming from someone who had nothing to gain and everything to lose by speaking. What followed only fueled suspicion. The response from the powerful figures involved was immediate and aggressive. Legal threats were issued. Statements were released. Denials came fast, faster than many people expected. Instead of quiet confidence, there was urgency. Instead of letting accusations fade, there was a push to shut them down hard and publicly. For some, that reaction raised more questions than it answered. Powerful people don't usually rush unless they feel pressure. Rather than putting the story to rest, the legal warnings reignited interest. The speed and intensity of the response made people wonder what was at stake. Why now? Why so forceful? In trying to silence the allegations, the situation only amplified them, pulling more eyes back to Bryshere's story and forcing the public to reconsider whether his downfall was really just a series of bad choices, or the aftermath of something far more damaging that he was never meant to survive out loud. Once you zoom out from Bryshere's story, it becomes harder to see it as an isolated implosion and easier to recognize a familiar pattern that's been whispered about for decades in entertainment circles. A young talent is elevated quickly, brought close to powerful figures, praised publicly as a protege, then, just as suddenly, discarded. What follows is often the same. Stalled careers, erratic behavior, legal trouble, and reputations quietly rewritten as troubled or unstable. When this happens once, it's easy to call it bad luck. When it happens repeatedly, with similar power dynamics and eerily similar outcomes, coincidence starts to feel like a convenient excuse. Over the years, Other industry figures have hinted at comparable experiences, never quite saying enough to invite lawsuits, but saying just enough to suggest they weren't alone. Stories of mentorships that came with unspoken expectations, of access that required silence, of careers that mysteriously cooled off after boundaries were questioned or emotional attachment became inconvenient. Bryshere's story no longer stands by itself when placed next to those whispers. It becomes part of a larger, uncomfortable conversation about how power operates when accountability is optional and ambition is easy to exploit. At the heart of the allegations are claims that go beyond bad judgment or messy relationships and instead raise serious questions about consent and coercion. According to those speaking out, the issue wasn't simply inappropriate behavior. It was the imbalance of power. When one person controls access to opportunity, wealth, and protection, consent becomes complicated. Saying yes doesn't always mean freedom of choice, and saying no can come with consequences that ripple through every part of someone's life. What makes these claims especially heavy is the long-term impact described. Insiders and observers point to psychological distress, emotional instability, and self-destructive behavior that surfaced long after the alleged events. The suggestion is that the damage wasn't momentary. It lingered. Trauma doesn't always look like silence. Sometimes it looks like chaos. And when that chaos plays out publicly, it's often misunderstood as personal failure instead of a symptom of something deeper and unresolved. The timing of this reckoning isn't random. Cultural shifts have changed how power, consent, and silence are viewed, especially in industries that once thrived on secrecy. Lawsuits against major figures have cracked open conversations people were once afraid to touch. NDAs that were meant to bury stories are being questioned. And individuals who stayed quiet out of fear of retaliation, blackballing, or ridicule are now watching others speak and survive. There's also the simple reality that time changes leverage. People who once felt disposable now have nothing left to lose. The reputations that once seemed untouchable are no longer immune to scrutiny. What was impossible to say 10 years ago is now being said out loud. Not because the truth suddenly changed, but because the environment finally did. So the real question isn't just what happened to Bryshere Gray. It's how many similar stories never reached the public at all. How many careers quietly ended before they began. How many people were labeled unstable, difficult, or ungrateful when they were actually trying to survive something they didn't have the power to stop. Hollywood has always been good at rewriting narratives, but history has a way of resurfacing when too many threads start to unravel at once. Accountability doesn't always come with a verdict. Sometimes it comes with awareness. And as more people revisit these stories with fresh eyes, the question remains, was this just one tragic downfall or a glimpse into a system that protects power at the expense of those who dare to trust it? The answer isn't settled yet, but the silence around it clearly is.